Let me say something most people won't have the courage to admit. The kinder you are, the easier you are to control. Not because kindness is weak, but because most people are trained to exploit it, and if that unsettles you, good, it should. Because here's the truth no one warns you about. The moment you become predictable, agreeable, always available, you stop being respected, and you start being managed. Have you ever noticed how the people who give the most are often the ones who get the least back? It's not bad luck, it's not coincidence, it's a pattern, a system, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. See, the world doesn't reward softness, it studies it. It maps your reactions, learns your limits, and then quietly builds a way to use you without resistance. That's the game, and most people are playing it without even realizing. I learned this through someone I once knew, someone genuinely good, the kind of person who said yes too quickly, who gave without hesitation, who believed loyalty would be returned. It wasn't. Instead, they were drained, overlooked, and slowly reshaped into exactly what the world prefers. Harmless, obedient, easy. Then one day, they disappeared. No explanation, no warning, just silence. And when they came back, they weren't the same person. There was no softness left to exploit, no need to explain, no urgency to please, just calm, precision, control. They looked at me and said something I'll never forget. I finally understood how people really work, and I stopped letting them. That's when everything changed, because Niccolo Machiavelli was right. Power doesn't belong to the kind, it belongs to the aware, to the disciplined, to the strategic, to the ones who refuse to be handled. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how that transformation happens, how someone goes from being used to becoming untouchable. But understand this before we go any further, this isn't for everyone. It's for the ones who are done being predictable, done being emotionally controlled, done being the easiest person in the room to manipulate. So before we begin, I want you to make a decision. Are you going to stay who you've been, or are you finally ready to become someone the world can't control? If you're ready, type this in the comments. I choose power. Let's begin. Number 1, stop overgiving your energy. Not gradually, not when it's convenient. Cut it off where it's leaking. Because if you look closely, you're not being drained all at once, you're being drained in pieces. A conversation you didn't need to have, a favor you knew wouldn't be returned, a quick help, that quietly turned into a pattern, a person who only shows up when something is missing in their life and disappears the moment yours needs attention. You've seen this, you've felt it, but you stayed not because you're blind, but because you were trained to associate giving with value, to believe that being needed makes you important. It doesn't. It makes you available, and availability, when it's uncontrolled, turns you into a resource, not a man, a resource. That's how they start seeing you, not as someone with boundaries, direction, and standards, but as someone they can access whenever it benefits them. And here's the part that hits harder than most want to admit. You helped create that dynamic. Every time you said yes when you wanted to say no, every time you ignored that internal signal telling you something was off, every time you overextended yourself just to maintain an image, you trained them, you taught them how far they could go. I've seen this play out too many times. A man who's always there, always answering, always helping, always adjusting. At first, people appreciate it, then they expect it, and eventually, they stop respecting it, because what comes easily holds no weight. And now he's stuck, overgiving, underappreciated, quietly frustrated, wondering why no one shows up for him the same way. But they won't, because he never required it. This is where you need to shift, not into bitterness, but into precision. You don't stop giving, you stop giving blindly, you start measuring. Who shows consistency without being asked, who matches your effort without negotiation, who stays present when there's nothing to gain, that's where your energy goes. Everyone else gets distance, not explanation, not emotional speeches, just distance, because energy is currency, and you've been spending it like it has no value. That ends here. Let me make this clear. The people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will not like this change. They'll call you different, distant, cold. They'll say you've changed good, because the version of you they preferred was easier to use. Now they have to earn access, and most won't. That's the filter. You don't need to cut people off aggressively. You don't need conflict. You just stop feeding what drains you and watch what happens. Some people disappear, others adjust, and both outcomes work in your favor, because for the first time, your energy is no longer being pulled in every direction. It's being directed back into you, your growth, your discipline, your focus. And when that shift happens, something changes internally. You stop feeling scattered, you stop feeling obligated, you stop feeling like you're constantly giving more than you receive, because now you are to yourself. That's where your power was always supposed to go, not into people who only value you when you're useful, but into becoming someone who cannot be easily accessed, easily drained, or easily replaced. If you felt this hit somewhere deeper than just words, don't ignore it like you've ignored everything else that was trying to wake you up. Make it a line you don't cross again. Comment this and hold yourself to it the next time you feel that urge to overgive. My energy is earned, not given. Number 2, transform betrayal into fuel, not into sadness. Not into revenge fantasies, but into power. Because if you're honest, the betrayal didn't start when they crossed the line. It started long before that, and you just ignored the signs. You saw the inconsistency. You felt the shift in tone, the delayed replies, the subtle disrespect disguised as jokes, those small moments where something felt off, but you overrode it. Why? Because you wanted it to be real, you wanted them to be loyal, you wanted the story in your head to be true more than you wanted to face the truth in front of you, and that's where the damage begins, not in their betrayal, but in your denial. Most men don't break because someone betrayed them. They break because their illusion collapses. The version of reality they built shatters, and now they're left asking the wrong question. Why did they do this to me? Wrong. The real question is, what did I ignore that allowed this to happen? That's the shift. That's where you stop being a victim and start becoming dangerous. Because betrayal is never random. It follows patterns, predictable ones. Let me paint you a scene. A guy I knew, solid, disciplined, focused, built his life from nothing. Then he meets a woman intense, emotional, magnetic. In the beginning, she admires him, says all the right things, makes him feel seen. But there are cracks. She tests him. Small things at first, disrespect, framed as playfulness, emotional swings, inconsistency. He notices, but he rationalizes it. She's just been through a lot. So he invests more time, attention, emotional energy. He tries to stabilize her chaos, and for a while, it works until it doesn't. One day she's gone. No warning, no explanation, just replaces him like he never existed. And he's left staring at his phone, replaying everything, trying to understand where it went wrong. But it didn't go wrong at the end. It went wrong the first time. He tolerated what he should have walked away from. That's how betrayal works. It's not a sudden event. It's a slow permission you give someone to disrespect you, piece by piece, until they finally take everything. So when it happens, don't sit there asking for closure. You already got it. Their actions were the explanation. You don't need a conversation. You don't need an apology. You don't need them to make it make sense. It already does. They acted in their own interest, not yours. That's human nature. Most people don't operate on loyalty. They operate on advantage. And the moment they believe they can get more somewhere else, they move cold, clean, without hesitation. Now here's where you decide who you become. Most men spiral. They get emotional. They chase answers. They try to fix what's already broken. But a man who understands power does something different. He studies it. He replays the situation, not to suffer, but to extract data. Where did I ignore my instincts? Where did I overinvest? Where did I give access before it was earned? Because every betrayal leaves a trail, and if you're sharp enough, you'll see it. And once you see it, something shifts. You stop trusting words, and you start watching behavior. You stop reacting emotionally, and you start calculating. You stop giving people the benefit of the doubt, and you make them prove their value over time. That's how you evolve, not by becoming bitter, but by becoming precise. Because here's the truth no one says out loud. Betrayal is a filter. It removes the weak, the fake, the opportunistic from your circle. But only if you let it. If you chase them, you fail the test. If you beg, you confirm your position. If you try to fix it, you hand your power back. So don't. Silence, distance, discipline. That's your response. And the next time someone steps into your life, they won't meet the same man. They'll meet someone who sees faster, decides quicker, and walks away without hesitation. That's what betrayal is supposed to do, not destroy you, but refine you. Pain makes you sharper. Number 3, release the need for approval, not slowly, not when it feels comfortable, but decisively, like you're cutting off something that's been poisoning you. Because it has. If you're honest, part of your life has been a performance. Not in an obvious way, not something people would easily call out, but subtle enough to shape how you move. You lower your tone in certain rooms, you filter your opinions depending on who's listening, you hesitate before saying what you really think, calculating reactions before the words even leave your mouth. That's not strategy. That's dependence, and dependence is control. The moment you need approval, you stop acting freely. You start negotiating your identity in real time. And you've done this more times than you admit. You didn't post what you wanted because it might look too much. You held back a decision because someone might disagree. You explained yourself to people who never had authority over your life to begin with. Why? Because rejection feels like loss. Because being misunderstood feels like danger. Because deep down you've been conditioned to associate acceptance with safety. But here's what no one tells you. The same people whose approval you seek are not thinking about you nearly as much as you think. They're consumed by their own insecurities, their own image, their own survival. You're adjusting your behavior for people who wouldn't lose sleep over your absence. Let that sink in. I once watched a man closely quiet, disciplined, not someone who spoke much. At first, people called him arrogant, said he was distant, hard to read. But over time, something shifted. The same people who criticized him started respecting him, listening more when he spoke, watching how he moved. Nothing about him changed externally. He just stopped explaining himself. That's it. He stopped giving people access to his internal world without permission. And suddenly his presence carried weight. Because mystery creates tension, and tension creates attention. Most men talk too much because they're trying to control how they're perceived. They over-explain to avoid being misunderstood. They soften their edges to stay likable. But the more you explain, the more you dilute your authority. Every explanation is a subtle request. Do you agree with me? And the moment you ask that, you've already lowered your position. Power doesn't ask to be understood. It moves, decides, executes, and lets people deal with it. You need to understand this at a deeper level. When people can predict you, they relax around you. When they relax, they stop respecting boundaries. When they stop respecting boundaries, they start testing you. But when they can't fully read you, they watch. They measure their behavior more carefully. They think twice before crossing a line, not because you said anything, but because your presence communicates enough. This is where most men struggle. They want respect, but they also want to be liked. You can have both, but if you have to choose, and eventually approval will cost you your edge. Respect won't. So you have to decide, are you building a life or managing opinions? Because you can't do both at a high level. From now on, move differently. Make decisions without announcing them. Stop explaining your vision to people who haven't built anything themselves. Stop asking for feedback from those who live in confusion. You don't need a committee to validate your direction. You need clarity, discipline, and the ability to stand alone without flinching. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them project their fears onto your silence. None of it changes your trajectory. And here's the shift that changes everything. The moment you stop needing validation, you become someone people try to understand instead of control. That's where influence begins. Not when you speak more, but when you need less. If this hits something real in you, don't just listen and move on, lock it in. Comment this, not for anyone else, but to remind yourself what you're stepping into. I don't perform for approval. I move with authority. Number 4, detachment is control, not distance for the sake of ego, not pretending you don't care, but something much quieter than that, something internal, something disciplined, the moment you realize that nothing outside of you gets to dictate how you move. Most men don't see how attached they are until something gets pulled away. A message goes unanswered, and suddenly the mind starts racing. You check your phone again and again. You replay the last conversation, analyze tone, timing, meaning, and you feel that subtle anxiety in your chest creeping in. And what you call interest is actually dependency. And the second someone feels that dependency in you, the dynamic changes. You meet someone, and in the beginning everything is balanced. You're grounded. You're not overinvested. You speak, then you disappear. You stay focused on your life. And because of that they lean in. They feel your presence. They respect your space. But then something shifts, slowly, almost without you noticing. You start attaching. You start expecting consistency, wanting more access, more reassurance, more control over how things unfold. Your mood begins to rise and fall based on their responses, and without saying a word, you hand them leverage. Now, they don't need to dominate you aggressively. They don't need conflict. They don't need to fight. They just pull back slightly and watch what happens. You overthink. You reach out first. You try to fix something that hasn't even been defined. You start performing again, trying to bring things back to what they were, trying to regain a position you already lost. And that's the moment control slipped, not when they changed, but when you did. Detachment would have stopped that, because detachment is the ability to stay centered when things shift, to observe without reacting immediately, to feel something and still choose your response instead of being dragged by it. It's power in its most silent form. People expect reactions. They rely on them. They expect you to chase when they withdraw, to explain when they question, to get emotional when they create tension, and when you don't, it disrupts them. I've seen it happen. A man gets disrespected in a group setting, a small comment, a subtle jab, and everyone watches to see how he reacts. Most laugh it off awkwardly or escalate emotionally, but the dangerous one pauses, lets the silence sit just long enough to shift the atmosphere, then either responds calmly or doesn't respond at all, and that uncertainty, that control, changes everything. Because detachment isn't passive, it's intentional. You don't give reactions for free, you decide when they're earned. Attachment makes you predictable, and predictable men are easy to manage. If someone knows what triggers you, what excites you, what you fear losing, they don't need strength to control you. They just need timing, and detachment removes that advantage. You stop being easy to read, easy to provoke, easy to pull. You become still, and that stillness makes people uncomfortable, especially those who rely on emotional chaos to maintain control. They will test you, push, withdraw, reappear, try to pull a reaction out of you just to confirm they still have access. And when nothing comes back, that's when respect begins to form, not because you demanded it, but because they can't move you. Detachment is not about losing connection. It's about never losing yourself inside one. You can care without collapsing. You can want without needing. You can be present without being owned. That's the balance. And once you master it, something shifts in how people experience you. You become harder to manipulate, harder to replace, harder to forget, because there's no pressure in you, no desperation, no emotional volatility to exploit, just presence, controlled, grounded, unshaken, and that's rare. If this hit deeper than just words, don't ignore it, seal it, and the next time you feel yourself getting pulled, remember this line and hold it like a standard. Nothing outside of me controls how I move. Number 5, boundaries as power shields. Not suggestions, not polite requests, but enforcement, because most men don't actually have boundaries. They have preferences disguised as limits, and there's a difference. A preference says, I'd rather you didn't do that. But a boundary says, if you do that, you lose access. And if there's no consequence, then it's not a boundary, it's just noise. Let's be honest for a second. You've allowed things you knew you shouldn't have. You felt it in real time. That tight feeling in your chest, that exact moment where something crossed the line and you said nothing. You laughed it off. You minimized it. You told yourself it wasn't a big deal. But it was, and every time you stayed silent, you trained them. You taught them how to treat you. That's the part nobody wants to face. Disrespect rarely starts big. It starts small, a late reply, a canceled plan, a subtle shift in tone, a joke that goes just a little too far. And you notice it, of course you do. But instead of addressing it, you adjust yourself. You become more understanding, more flexible, more patient, and they become more comfortable. That's how the dynamic flips. I watched this happen up close. A man sharp, focused, disciplined, someone who built his life with structure. Then he lets someone into his space. And at first everything is clean, respect is there. But then the tests begin. She shows up late. He says nothing. She changes plans last minute. He adapts. She disrespects him subtly in front of others. He laughs it off to keep the peace. And in his mind, he thinks he's being mature, controlled, unbothered. But what he's actually doing is lowering his standard in real time. And she feels it. So she pushes further, not because she's evil, but because she can, because there's no resistance, no consequence, no line she can't cross. And eventually, she loses respect completely, not because he wasn't good enough, but because he wasn't firm enough. That's how boundaries work. Number 6, master strategic silence. Not the awkward silence, not the passive silence, but controlled silence, chosen silence. The kind that makes people shift in their seat because they can't read you. Most men talk themselves out of power. They think clarity comes from explaining more, from saying more, from making sure everyone understands their intentions. But every extra word you give is exposure. You reveal what you want, what you fear, what you're thinking, and the moment that becomes visible, it becomes usable, because people don't need to overpower you if they can predict you. That's why silence changes the game. You're in a conversation, someone throws a subtle jab at you, not direct enough to call out easily, just enough to test you, and most men react instantly. They defend, they joke it off, they explain themselves, anything to relieve the tension. But when you don't, when you hear it, look at them and say nothing, not out of confusion but out of control. The pressure flips. Now they don't know if you ignored it, if you're about to address it, or if they just crossed a line they shouldn't have, and that uncertainty destabilizes them. Because silence forces people to sit with their own behavior. You didn't give them anything to work with, and that's power. There's another layer most men never reach. Silence is not just about what you don't say, it's about what you allow others to reveal. Because people hate silence, it exposes them. So they rush to fill it, they overtalk, they explain too much, they contradict themselves, they show their intentions without realizing it. And all you have to do is stay quiet long enough. I've watched this play out in business, in relationships, in rooms where status is being silently negotiated. The man who speaks first usually loses leverage. The man who reacts fastest usually gives away position. But the one who waits, observes, listens, collects everything, tone shifts, body language, inconsistencies, while everyone else is trying to be understood, he's understanding everyone. That's the difference. You're not there to express everything, you're there to read the room, and silence gives you access to information most people talk over. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. A lot of your talking isn't communication, it's anxiety. You explain because you don't want to be misunderstood. You respond quickly because you don't want to seem weak. You fill gaps because silence makes you feel exposed, and people can feel that. They feel the need behind your words, and need lowers your position instantly. Silence removes that. You don't rush, you don't chase, you don't react on command, you decide when to speak, and because of that, when you finally do, people listen. Because it's rare, because it's measured, because it's not driven by emotion but by intent, and that's what gives your words weight. Think about it. The loudest man in the room gets attention, but the quiet one gets respect, because nobody knows what he's thinking, nobody knows his next move, nobody can map him, and what can't be mapped can't be controlled. That's why manipulators hate silence. They rely on your reactions, your explanations, your emotional leaks. Take that away, and they're left guessing. And when people start guessing, they start making mistakes, which puts you in control without saying a word. This doesn't mean you become mute. It means you become precise. You don't speak to release tension. You speak to create impact. Every word has a purpose. Every pause has weight. And your silence stops being empty. It becomes a message. If you really understand this, don't just nod and move on. Most men hear this and keep talking the same way. Don't be most men. Lock this in and make it a rule you operate by from now on. I don't speak to fill space. I speak to control it. Number 7. Loyalty is conditional, not blind, and this is where most men destroy themselves quietly, slowly, without even realizing it. Because you were taught something that sounds noble, something that sounds strong and honorable, but in reality works against you. Stay loyal no matter what. It sounds right, it feels right, but what it actually does is keep you stuck in situations where you're the only one holding the line. Let's be real, you've stayed loyal to people who are already gone, physically present but mentally checked out, emotionally unavailable, strategically distant, and you knew it. You felt the imbalance, the shift, the coldness in how they moved with you, compared to how you moved with them. But you stayed. You told yourself loyalty means endurance, that real men don't walk away, that leaving makes you weak, so you held on while they slowly detached. That's not loyalty, that's self-abandonment. Loyalty, without evaluation, turns you into a fixed asset in someone else's life, predictable, reliable, always there, and what's always there eventually stops being valued. You've seen this play out, maybe even lived it. Two men build something together, a business, a friendship, something real. One is consistent, shows up, handles pressure, keeps things moving. The other is there when it's easy, when things are going well, when there's something to gain. But the moment things get uncomfortable, he disappears. And here's where it breaks most men. The one who stayed consistent also stays loyal. He tells himself they've been through too much, that he can't just walk away. So he compensates, works harder, carries more weight, makes excuses for someone who has already shown exactly who they are. And over time he burns out, not because he wasn't strong, but because he was loyal to someone who wasn't loyal to him. That's how blind loyalty destroys you. It ties your standards to someone else's inconsistency. And once that happens, you stop operating from strength and start operating from obligation. Here's the shift you need to make. Loyalty is not based on history, it's based on behavior. What someone did for you years ago means nothing if today they move like a stranger. What they promised means nothing if their actions don't match. What you've been through together means nothing if they're not showing up now. Past investment does not justify present disrespect. That's where most men get stuck, holding on to situations that expired a long time ago, just because they invested too much to walk away. That's a sunk cost mindset, and it will keep you tied to people who are no longer aligned with you. You need to start watching patterns, not words. Who shows up when there's nothing to gain, who stands with you when it's inconvenient, who protects your name when you're not in the room. That's loyalty. Everything else is convenience. And the moment you make your loyalty conditional, everything changes. Some people will step up, others will disappear, and a few will try to guilt you. They'll say you've changed, that you're colder, more distant, less real. But what they really mean is that you're no longer easy to use. Good. Because loyalty is not something you owe to everyone who enters your life. It's something you invest carefully, and only where it's reciprocated. You don't stay where you're not valued. You don't protect people who wouldn't protect you. You don't commit to those who treat your presence like it's guaranteed. You move quietly, cleanly, without explanation. Because real loyalty doesn't need to be announced. It's demonstrated, consistently, mutually, without pressure. And once you understand this, your circle changes. It becomes smaller, stronger, harder to break, because everyone in it earned their place. If this hit deeper than you expected, don't ignore it. Make it a line you don't cross again. And the next time you feel tempted to stay where you shouldn't, remember this and stand on it. My loyalty follows actions, not memories. Number 8, become untouchable. Not in the way people think, not cold for the sake of image, not playing the role of a man who doesn't care, because that's fake and it cracks under pressure. Real untouchable is internal. It's when nothing gets inside your head without permission. And most men are nowhere near that. They look strong on the outside, but one message, one shift in tone, one moment of disrespect, and everything starts shaking internally. You've felt it, that instant hit in your chest, when something doesn't go your way, when someone you expected more from moves differently, when reality doesn't match the version you built in your mind, and suddenly your thoughts spiral. You question yourself, you question them, you replay everything, you lose focus. That's not weakness, that's lack of control, because your stability is still tied to things you don't own. people, outcomes, expectations. And that's the problem. Look at the difference. Two men get rejected. The first one takes it personally. He starts asking what he did wrong. He adjusts his behavior, tries to become more acceptable, more likable, more right. The second one observes it, registers it, and moves on. No emotional collapse, no identity crisis, no need to fix himself for someone who made a decision based on their own perception. Same event, different internal structure, and that's what makes one of them untouchable. It's not that nothing happens to him, it's that nothing owns him. To reach that level, you have to let go of the need for things to go your way, and that includes people, outcomes, comfort, because the moment you need something to happen, you give it power over you, and life will test that. People will pull back, situations will shift, plans will collapse without warning, and if your center depends on stability, you collapse with it. I've seen men lose years of progress over one emotional hit, one betrayal, and they shut down, one rejection, and they stop taking risks, one failure, and they start doubting everything, not because the event was that powerful, but because they were attached to an outcome they couldn't control. Untouchable men don't do that. They expect volatility. They expect people to change. They expect things to break. So when it happens, they don't react like it's personal. They adjust, calmly, quickly, without noise. And you can feel the difference when you're around someone like that. There's no urgency in them, no desperation, no emotional spikes you can predict. They're steady, and that steadiness is intimidating because you can't move them, you can't bait them, you can't rush them, you can't shake their frame. And once people realize that, they stop trying to control you, they start respecting you, not because you demanded it, but because they have no other option. Being untouchable doesn't mean you don't feel. You feel everything, you just don't let it decide for you. You don't let temporary emotion create permanent damage. You don't let someone else's behavior rewrite your identity. You don't let chaos outside become chaos inside. That's mastery. And it requires something most men avoid, responsibility. Because once you decide nothing controls you, you lose the excuse to blame anything. Not people, not situations, not timing. It's all on you, your reactions, your focus, your direction. That level of ownership is where real power lives, and very few reach it. But if you do, you stop being easy to break, easy to influence, easy to replace. Because your value is no longer dependent on anything external. It's built, solid, quiet, unshaken. If you're ready to operate at that level, don't just agree with it. Most men will feel this and go back to reacting the same way tomorrow. Don't be that. Lock it in. And from this point forward, move with this standard. Nothing controls me. Nothing breaks me. I stay solid. And now that you've reached the end, let's be clear about something most people won't say out loud. None of this matters, not yet. Because understanding this, feeling it, even agreeing with it doesn't change who you are. Execution does. There's a quiet addiction most men live with, and you probably felt it while listening to this. That surge, that clarity, that moment where everything clicks, and you think, this is it, this is what I needed. And then a few hours pass, maybe a day, maybe a week, and you're back in the same patterns, same reactions, same overthinking, same people having the same access to you, like none of this ever happened. That's the real trap. Not ignorance, but false awareness. Convincing yourself you've evolved just because you understood something, while your behavior never changed, and because of that, your life doesn't change either. This is how it plays out in real life. A man hears something like this, feels it deeply, decides he's done being disrespected, done being available, done being predictable, and then the very next day he gets tested. A late message, disrespect disguised as humor, a situation that would normally trigger him. And in that moment, everything he learned disappears because now it's not theory, it's pressure. And most men fold right there. They go back to explaining, back to reacting, back to seeking validation. Not because they're weak, but because they never trained themselves to act differently under tension. That's the difference between consuming and becoming. And this is where you separate, because if you're still here, something in you is already tired. Tired of replaying the same scenarios in your head. Tired of giving more than you receive. Tired of losing control exactly when it matters most. But there's another side of you, quieter, sharper. The part that doesn't want comfort. It wants control. It's the part of you that notices patterns faster than others, that feels when something is off before it becomes obvious, that doesn't fully trust what people say because it watches what they do, and that's the part you've been ignoring, and that's the part that needs to take over. Because once it does, everything changes. You stop reacting emotionally and start reading strategically. You stop explaining yourself and start moving with intent. You stop chasing outcomes and start controlling your position. And that's when life stops happening to you and starts moving through you. Here's the truth most people won't accept. The world does not reward potential. It does not reward intention. It rewards alignment between what you know and how you move. And if those two don't match, nothing changes. So, don't try to apply everything at once. That's another mistake. Pick one, just one, and apply it today in a real situation where it actually matters. When you feel the urge to react, don't. When you feel the need to explain, stay silent. When someone crosses a line, enforce it. That's how this becomes real, not in your head, but in your behavior. And once you start doing that consistently, something shifts. You stop recognizing the version of yourself that tolerated everything, the one who hesitated, the one who second-guessed, the one who needed permission. That version fades, and what replaces it is harder to read, harder to break, calm, focused, controlled, not loud, not emotional, just precise. And that precision is what builds a life people can't interfere with. So don't let this become just another video you liked. Either use it or forget it. There is no middle ground. And if you're actually done being easy to read, easy to influence, and easy to replace, prove it where it counts, not to me, but to yourself, and from this point forward move with this standard. I don't consume knowledge, I execute it.